Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Piano Shack. Join me as we go and pick up a legendary 80s synthesizer. This really was a game changer.
Piano Shack.
So when I was a child, I used to go for music lessons with a gentleman called Mr. Griffiths. And these were classical music lessons, and he knew that I was interested in synthesizers because I'd helped him out by doing a performance on one of his musical plays on my Juno 6 synthesizer. So anyway, after my music lesson was finished with him, we went out to another room and he opened up a case and showed me a synthesizer the likes of which I'd never seen before. Normally synthesizers are festooned with knobs and sliders and buttons and switches, but this thing had basically nothing. There was one slider, if I recall correctly, and that was it. I'd never seen anything quite like it, but it did look really, really futuristic and fantastic. I was curious. So then he switched it on and he said, "Let me play you a timpani sound." And he played a couple of notes on this keyboard, and the most astonishing sort of realistic timpani sound came out of this synthesizer. And until then, I'd never heard anything quite like this from an analog synthesizer. At this time, there were only analog synthesizers on the market, you see. He played a few other patches for me. We listened to some bass sounds and some flutes or something, maybe some marimbas. And it just sounded incredible. And after hearing that, I didn't really want to play my Juno 6 again. In fact, you could really say that this instrument was a game changer because it changed the whole synthesizer industry. After this synthesizer was released, nothing was really ever the same again. Almost overnight, all of these analog synthesizers became almost obsolete. No one wanted to hear those boring old sounds again. Everybody wanted these new digital sounds. This instrument was hugely popular for many years, and then it became a bit unfashionable and a little bit dated. But now it's enjoying a real resurgence, and these sounds are popular once again. I've kind of always wanted one, even more so since I started my channel, and today's the chance. One has come up at a reasonable price, so we're going to go and take a look, and if I like it, I'm going to buy it. As usual, we'll do a little montage of the pickup, and I'll play some music that was actually recorded on this exact instrument. Alright, so the deal is done. I bought it. This is a fine specimen of this particular synthesizer. It's absolutely gorgeous and it sounds fabulous. As far as I can tell, everything is working exactly as it should. In fact, it's hard to believe this keyboard is nearly 35 years old. A big shout out to Max, who sold me the instrument. Thanks a lot, man. What a nice guy. So let's speed on home, and then tomorrow or at the weekend possibly we will reveal what the keyboard is and we'll have a quick look around it. Yes guys, you probably guessed, I have a gorgeous DX7 in front of me. This is 35 years old and in pretty nice condition. Come on, let's have a quick look around it. So yeah, I've been looking for one of these for a long time. I've gone from absolutely hating the sounds on the DX7 to loving them. This one is a pretty nice example, I think. Let's have a quick look around. Now the thing about these synthesizers is that they have these membrane buttons. They're completely flat. Now these were all the rage, I guess, in the early 80s. A lot of home computers had similar keyboards. I'm thinking like ZX81, ZX80, probably a few American computers of the same vintage had these buttons, and they have a terrible reputation for reliability. But these ones, I'm happy to say, work absolutely perfectly. Sometimes the surface tends to get a little bit ripped and scuffed, but no, these are fantastic. We have a very small non-backlit LCD display. There's an LED there as well. By the way, these buttons, guys, you use these to program the synthesizer, but also to select the patch, the sound that you want to play with. And this is really cool. There's actually 32 slots here, 32 sounds, 32 presets available to you. Which is astonishing. There is nothing else. You can put these Rom cartridges in to get a little bit more sounds. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, I really like the idea of having just 32 sounds available to you, and there's one button to access each sound. Now these days, of course, you have to scroll through thousands of sounds to find the one you're looking for, and something about this appeals to me. Okay, there's only 32 and you can instantly access them, and with just that small number of sounds you can really get to know each sound and know the strengths and weaknesses and where you can use it and whatnot, and I find that very appealing in this day and age. As usual, for the synthesizers of this time, we have lots of technical whatnot here, all the different algorithms for the FM synthesis, which I do not understand. Most people don't. So what people end up doing with these DX7s is just using the internal presets a lot of the time. We have a little bit of damage over here, a few scuffs. You see that there? There's a ding here on the back side. Let's walk around and have a look at the back together. So yeah, a slight ding there, and I'm going to tell you what this thing is in a second. That iconic badge on the back. Yes, every band that I watched on Top of the Pops in the 80s had one of these on stage. Yamaha DX7. It was iconic, very expensive synthesizer in its time, it really was. And I think these are becoming rather collectible now and going up in value as this FM sound is becoming popular again. There's reissues of the FM synthesis engine in Yamaha's, what do they call them? The Reface DX. Korg are releasing DX7 clones in their little groove box things. I don't remember what they're called. And Yamaha, of course, their flagship synthesizer features an FM synthesizer engine. So the sounds from this thing are all the rage right now. As you can see, not very much in the way of knobs and sliders on these old synths. You have one data entry slider and you have a volume slider there as well, of course. Now then, back in the day, if you wanted more sounds, you bought yourself one of these. You bought yourself a Rom cartridge. This is number 1, which contains the factory presets. And here's another one containing some additional sounds. I think there's 96 sounds on each of these cartridges. And you plug them in this way around, perhaps, I don't know. No, this way around then. There you go, in it goes. That gives you another 96 sounds plus the 32 internal for a total of 128, which is about as much as I'm comfortable with dealing with. I can also mention the keyboard on here is fabulous. Wow, Yamaha could make really nice keyboards back in the early 80s. This thing feels very solid and professional. And by the way, let me just mention the build quality of this thing. I put it on the scales when I got home because I was curious, and it weighs over 15 kilograms. That's 30 pounds. This thing is built of very, very thick sheet metal. It's absolutely awesome. It's so well solidly built. Sometimes people say, oh, it's built like a tank. That is a bit overused perhaps, so let's say this thing is built like a battleship. It is really fabulous. Not just any old battleship. Let's say it's built like a World War II dreadnought. Or were they in World War I? I'm not sure. But just look at this solid thing, and it's bloody heavy, yes. Okay, one more thing. We were talking about these attachments a little bit earlier on. How many of you guys know that the DX7 came with a music stand? Wow! What a cool thing. Why don't all keyboards have music stands? It's so useful. This is what you want on any keyboard. Nowadays, you just find music stands on the cheap sort of home keyboards, the auto arrangers and your PSRs and stuff. But why don't pro synths have music stands? Even pro musicians need to put their music somewhere. There is one issue with this keyboard that we need to address in the next video. Now, of course, I tested everything thoroughly before I bought it, and everything seems to be working perfectly. However, when I was picking it up to take it to my car, I heard this. Can you hear that? It feels like, or it sounds like, I can feel it as well, there's 10 or 12 pieces of debris rolling around in the case there, which is of some concern, of course. I hope it's not sort of electrical components that have disintegrated and are floating around in the bottom of the case. We're going to open it up and investigate, but hopefully it's just some foreign matter that has somehow got inside the case, but we'll find out. So I have really big plans for this instrument. I'm looking forward to doing some demonstrations of those classic 32 factory presets on the instrument. I'm going to do some 80s inspired performances and whatnot, but I'd also like to put this head to head against some virtual software instruments that attempt to emulate the DX7 sound. So we're going to do an A/B comparison and hear exactly how closely they match to the real thing. So there you go. I think we'll wrap this pickup video up right now. We'll save the audio demonstrations for a separate video. Thanks for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you again real soon. Ta-da!